Hey, what's happening? You're live with the Toe Bugs. I'm here with Nathan Castile from Cecil Boot Company, and we may have a couple other people join us in a little while. I know some people are running late, and a few of them couldn't make it tonight, but we got a good show coming up. We're going to talk about boot care, and we're going to try to touch on as many different hides as we can tonight to get you guys all the information you need to care for your cowhide boots and your exotics and everything. So, how's it going, Nathan?
Oh man, living the dream. Excited to be on here tonight. This is a topic that I have, if you've been on Reddit, you've seen me get into some fairly heated arguments with some individuals over. It's all in great fun. I've only banned 2 people in the last 3 weeks about it. So I do have some strong opinions when it comes to products that should be used on boots or should not be used. So I think it'll be a good discussion.
All right, cool. Well, why don't we start off with what boots are you wearing today?
What boots? So I'm gonna be honest. I am still wearing the JD Hills today, but I
Okay.
got these in and I want to share them. So these are some 1960s Nakona shorty leather inlay with some red and
Wow.
white leather inlay. I redid the sides of the soles on them and just kind of gussied them up a little bit. But
Yeah,
these are
those are sweet.
yeah, those are going to be my boots tomorrow.
Yeah. Let's see if I can get my foot up here. That is,
Woo!
look, I haven't even scuffed up the bottom yet.
Did you just put those on sitting there at the computer?
No, I wore them all day in the house, but I haven't been
Wow.
outside yet, and I've almost busted my ass 3 times.
Wow.
That is from Roman Boots TXRB. They're a Cayman tail boot, or maybe Cayman belly. I can't remember, but
it looks belly.
yeah, I think it's belly. But this is a fantastic boot for the price, in my opinion. It's coming in.
I mean, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's coming in under $400. So it's a
Can't
really
beat
nice
that.
boot. I'm very pleased with them. I like the color on it and everything.
Yeah, what do they call that? Is that like a chocolate or?
It just says brown or black is what they call them.
All right.
I'll be honest. They've been around a couple of years, but they're really pushing heavy now, trying to do some marketing and stuff. And their website is still a little plain. I mean, it's very functional, but I don't think he's gotten into the naming his colors, fancy names and stuff yet. Super nice
Midnight
guy.
Easter.
Yeah, his name is Miguel Roman, and he's a super sweet guy. And so I've been giving him some, not advice, but suggestions here and there, or opinions or whatever. And I think he's really trying to make a push in the American market right now. So check him out. Let me see if I can get you the website here.
Is that going to be like linked in the video?
Yeah, I'll put it in the video. It's romanboots.com is all it is. So I will try to do that right now.
Good.
So I was thinking, man, why don't we start off with cowhide?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a good starting place for everybody.
It's probably the most common leather that you're going to find on any kind of cowboy boot. So it's definitely a good jumping off point. For me, I kind of have different categories that I tend to place a lot of these bigger name things into. And so I'll go into that in a second. But if you look at leather, any leather, cowhide, whatever it is, under a microscope, I mean, basically it's a pile of fibers, like pile of rope that's all tangled up. And so when they tan cowhide or any other leather, right, they coat the fibers like with material, allowing them to bend, move, slip, right? So
Yeah.
there are natural oils in that skin that keep the leather soft and supple. If you don't lubricate it, those fibers will become stiff, brittle. The dust and the dirt will go, into those cracks, into those fibers, and particles will create stiff kind of like dry environment that will break down and the leather is going to crack. Whether it's cowhide leather, crocodile, that may do it faster. Certainly cowhide is one that's probably a little bit more forgiving for us. That gives you a little bit of ability to experiment, expand on, what kind of things you're using, because it's not going to be as unforgiving as some of the more exotic leathers that you're going to use. Lucas is on here. Goodness gracious.
What's going on, buddy?
What's up? Can you hear me?
We can.
Loud and clear.
Well, I got my life threatened, so I had to fucking jump on here. So.
I wouldn't go that far. All right. Well, I got a question to follow up on that, Nathan, or Nate, we're calling you on this show. So what about rough out? Everybody loves rough outs, and you don't really condition those, and it's cowhide.
Yeah, right. Because if you put conditioner on it, it actually ruins the look of the boot. Right. So what I would say, basically, we put rough outs on a wing and a prayer, and we clean them with rough out cleaner.
Yeah.
But there's not really a good, as far as I've seen. I mean, you can't use a Lexol, you can't use a Bickmore, to condition the fibers. But it's made to be beat up. It's made to look rough. So I think that's maybe some of the boon of having a pair of rough outs is you don't have to do as much. I do have some suede and rough out cleaner from Feevings that works really, really well. And I've used that for a number of years, been able to get a couple of stains out, a couple of little nicks here and there. You clean it, but you can't really condition it.
Yeah. Now, is that going to shorten the life of them, in your opinion, since we can't really condition it?
Let me tell you the amount of suede and rough out boots I have personally owned in my entire life. It's not that high, but I would say that if you can't condition it, I don't know whether the nap does anything for you in like retaining some moisture, because it's all napped all around the top of the skin.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I haven't seen very many rough outs that I've ever bought that have been completely trashed. And I'll add Hippo to that list. Hippo is almost always suede because of how thick it is and how hard it is to work with.
Yeah.
I've seen some with a couple little stains here and there that I've been able to spray out, but I'm not getting anything that I've ever seen that's been torn. So I would say it maybe it's the nap, it helps hold in a little bit of that original tanned moisture. I'm not entirely sure. Not a leather scientist by any means, but I would say that out of the pairs I've received that have been ripped and torn, you see a lot more reptile than you do anything else.
Yeah. What about you, Lucas? I know you have some rough outs and suedes. Have you ever run into any problems with them?
I've never had any issues, but again, I'm not a working cowboy or anything like that. Right. That's really destroying them every day. But I've worn mine out obviously in dewy conditions in the grass, and they've been wet before. I really just let them dry. I get my boot trees in them, and usually I try to hit them every, at least once a month, depending on how much I'm using them with, a non-silicone water repellent.
Mm-hmm.
I use the Bickmore Guardmore. I've got some stuff from Lucchese that's also a protector. But yeah, really, it's just I've got my suede eraser. If I get any stains in it, that seems to work really good. And then the hard bristle brush.
Yeah.
Now we're talking rough out versus more suedes. The suedes I try to keep a little bit more of a care to as far as not getting them wet.
Right.
But all the rough outs I have are Lucchese, and I've talked to the Lucchese people, and they tell me beat the shit out of them. So that's
what I've always heard. I always had that question. Well, why do we just wear rough outs and don't give a damn what happens? But you're supposed to condition cowhide.
Right.
It's just because it's turned the other way.
And I thought I had seen along the way that there was some actual suede conditioners But I've never actually, really looked into it or checked them out or tried them.
Yeah, I haven't either. I did like you. I've got about a year ago, before I even had any rough outs, I got one of the Scout. It's not Bigmore, it's that company Scout, but it came with like the exotic conditioner and the leather lotion, and then here's Steve. And then the suede spray, and right. I use that and it works fine too. Scout, in my opinion, makes good products too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I know Bickmore, just to touch on this, I know Bickmore products are kind of the gold standard for a lot of people, but if you get something for Christmas by another brand or whatever, I mean, for the most part, I don't think there's that many really bad ones. If you get it as a gift or something, just use it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some Angelus, cleaner and things like that. I've never had any bad experiences. Usually if it says it's not going to darken the leather, 95% of the time you're all right with it.
Yeah. And I always test that on a pull tab or something first, just to make sure if it's a product I haven't used. But, if it doesn't darken, I think you're pretty much good to go on most of it.
Woo!
There's
Look at that sexy
Steve.
guy.
Like we caught him during dinner.
In the middle of a payday bar or something.
Yeah.
Good evening.
What's up, Steve?
Tell me.
Oh, we're just talking about shining up cowhide boots right now.
Yeah. How'd that manicures work out?
Good. Very good.
Good.
All right. Well, why don't we move on to some reptiles? I know Cayman is very popular right now. And, lizard always has been. So, and they're also probably the most delicate.
Yeah, with some old literature that I have, Tony Lama used to loop these all kind of into one category. You got lizard, alligator, turtle, hornback, anteater, and snake skin. So you kind of have like a reptile with the exception of your anteater, but because of the scales, you kind of put it in the same category, right? And they're generally drier than cowhide, right? They all have an irregular surface, which means that they have dust collection in places that you just can't get to on a regular cleaning, right? It's going to be more vulnerable to dust settling in creases. They're going to have more damage. They have a hard surface. Makes it look pretty, right? But it's much more difficult to get conditioner down into the skin. So inner coats more often, these are boots that are going to dry out just sitting in your closet. It's going to be something that's going to be vulnerable to a whole lot of just what's floating around and not captured in your air, vents and things. It's going to be the dust. It's going to be the dry conditions. So for me, I recommend two things, right? The first is the use of a cleaner as opposed to just a conditioner. You can condition reptile and you can take all that dust that sits on the top and you can saw it right back into the boot inside the conditioner and get it right inside the fibers and create more friction. As far as reptile is concerned, there are simple conditioners and there are actually some that will foam up to get into nooks and crannies that will kind of lift that dirt up out of there prior to the application of a conditioner, removing the dirt and dust from the surface of the leather. Those are the kind of things that I would recommend for your exotic reptile, is to get the scales and everything free of dirt before you apply a conditioner, a wax-free conditioner, which is a mix of oils that Lexol, Bic 4, Bic Exotic is really great. Bic Exotic's a lot thinner than Bic 4, and it's also a cleaner and conditioner in one, so it'll wipe the dirt and dust off and apply the conditioning agent.
Yeah. Does the Bickmore Exotic, does it foam up?
I don't believe it does. It's a spray on though, which is really convenient. So that's something that I've used when I'm cleaning some pairs and I get like older pairs, and I know that there's going to be some stuff in the nooks and crannies that are going to require, some cleaning before you apply the conditioner.
Yeah.
So the thick conditioner, dude, if you've ever cleaned a pair of Stingray with Bic 4, like you are going to leave behind a film, the thickness of your pinky nail on top of all of that, because it's just so many little baubles, so many of the little pieces of like skin figure, the calcification of the skin that lifts up off. So you're really going to want a thinner conditioner, a bit more exotic, as opposed to like a Bic 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I use the Scout Exotic, and it's the same way. It's a cleaner and conditioner, and it does not foam up. I think the Angelus brand, they make a reptile product that does foam, and I've been interested to try that. But I usually I'll spray them down with the Scout Exotic, rub it in a little bit, and then get a rag and kind of wipe it all off, and then I'll go back with another coat of it and really work it into the scales and everything.
I have that foaming Angelus reptile, and I will use it on something that has some age and some dust to it, and you can see what it removes from the boot. So I've used it quite a few times.
Okay, good
How
deal.
about Reptan?
What's that?
Reptan,
Yeah.
Severe Reptan. Is
Yeah, so
reptile specific to?
I've not ever used it, but I have some really good comments on Saphir, particularly when it comes to the difference between polish and cream. Saphir is pioneered in many ways in that, traditionally when you're looking at shoe polish or something that's a wax plus a dye, right? You're trying to apply something to the top of the boot that's a finisher. The wax is going to like cover your boot in some type of, well, usually it's a wax agent, right? That has some kind of dye in it. But Saphir with the boot cream, it's basically a conditioner mixed with dye. So for me, for your money, if you're going to do something, you've got a scuff, a scratch, a stain, and you've got a close cream polish, that's a Saphir cream. They're in these little jars. One of the main advantages is it has more color pigment than wax, which means it'll add color and also nutrients to the boot, to the skin, as opposed to just a wax, which is going to build up and it's a shiny layer. It looks nice, but it's not good for the skin, right?
Yeah.
You build up enough of it, it can crack. It can dry the leather out. It's another protective layer on what you probably already have on your boots, right? The shoes won't be able to take in moisture from conditioners. It can cause it to dry out and crack.
Yeah.
I am so against using any kind of waxes on top of boots. And basically newer boots, they have like waterproofer finishings that are on them, acrylic resin, leather sheen. They're not water resistant, but protectant for a high shine in thin coats that still allows it to breathe. So wax is not something that I'd ever recommend putting on a boot.
As far as conditions,
I've had pretty good results with Severe, the creams, not just for boots, but all kinds of shoes. If you've got a scuff or something like that, it works pretty good. And I've had really good results with the Reptan. Also, one thing I just wanted to kind of throw out there is a lot of these polishes and creams and stuff have turpentine in them. What's your y'all's comments about that?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of using some of these harsher agents when you've already, the boots have been tanned, right? They've already had the crap eaten out of them. So if you use any kind of alcohol-based things to include dyes and some of these harsher finishers on boots, man, it can really dry the hide out more.
And you can smell that as soon as you open it.
Yeah.
You know,
but it's still, I mean, a lot of people use it. I'm not saying they should, but just trying to kind of throw some stuff out there for people to contemplate.
Yeah.
Here's another one, saddle soap, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how much do you hear about that being used right now? Some people swear by it. Anybody use that?
I have some. I don't use it very often. No.
Just on leather only, nothing exotic.
Yeah, exactly.
I use
There's
it
a
for my
reason
own
why it's
boot.
got the name saddle soap
Yeah.
because it was designed to clean thick leather saddles covered in
Right.
grit, grime, and butt sweat.
Yeah. What were you saying, Lucas?
I was saying I have some, but I use it mostly on all my barn boots, which are smooth leather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, the ones that I actually really get dirty. You know, nothing in my regular lineup I
Yeah.
really abuse enough to actually need it.
Yeah. I'm actually going to do a video here soon about, I bought some Bickmore saddle soap and some Bic One, and I'm going to clean one boot with each and see, you know, what happens and what's better and all that good stuff.
Yeah, and,
Yes,
and you
that'll
know,
soak-
going back to the polish, I'll just throw it out there. I don't use polishes at all.
Yeah.
My lifestyle and what I'm doing with my boots, I don't really care for that high shine. It's just not something I use.
Right.
Just personal preference. I mean, a lot of my boots are, you know, new buck or, you know, even the stone washed. I mean, they've got that rough look to them, you know. I don't really have too many pairs that I would even throw a high shine on if I needed to.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just really exotic conditioners and Bic 4. I mean, I use the Bickmore Exotic and the Scout Exotic like you have.
Yeah.
And I like both of those. So you buff those up a little bit. I mean, you're getting a decent shine anyway.
Yeah.
I don't need to see myself in them. You know.
What about Angel brought up the Canadian Bee Seal? I know you use that.
Yeah, I've been using that a lot, really. You know, and a lot of it I'm obviously using on just my smooth leathers, and I'm also putting it on a lot of my Red Wing, which are oiled leathers. And it's all natural, it's all organic, it's nothing, you know, harsh, and it goes on. It almost, you know, if you open saddle soap and you see what it looks like in the can, that's almost what this looks like, and it's almost got that pasty feel. And you can either apply it and then leave it, and it gives it a little more of a dull texture, or you can apply it and then buff it, and it'll give you a little bit shinier. But it's got a lot of the natural stuff to help prevent with the water. So a lot of the times it's more of my, you know, fall, early winter applications that I'm using it for now.
Yeah.
And then I just, you know, use my Bic 4 more in the summers.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because leather is not waterproof, it's water resistant.
Right.
And if you get water on unprotected, unfinished leather, it's going to stain. Have you ever seen a pair of boots with a sweat stain, you know, that comes from the inside? I've seen tons of them, and you almost have to re-dye the entirety of the leather in order to get it back to, you know, some kind of uniformity of color. Because if you don't have a protectant on there, which is why I think like wax, you know, doesn't make sense from the inception, because right now these days people are using finishers, waterproofing finishers like tan coat, acrylic resin, leather sheen, right? They're using those as a high shine protectant, and then you put wax on top of that. I mean, you're asking for problems.
Yeah. Has anybody ever heard of URAD or URAD Tenderly? Carol Burgess brought that up. She said it's a cleaner and conditioner for smooth leather. I've never heard of it. Have you guys?
Have not.
No.
While we're kind of still talking about cowhide a little bit, for oil tan leather, you know, and sometimes it's a little bit a rougher leather. It's not totally smooth. What I like to use is neat's foot oil. Now, granted, it's going to darken it a lot when you first put it on there, and it'll eventually come back to its regular color. But I just like that because it's cheap and it really, really hydrates that dry oiled leather. And so y'all might check that out. But like I said, it's like I'll put it on these Ariats, right? And this is that kind of leather where if you take your fingernail, it makes a mark on there.
Yeah.
And I'll soak those up with some neat's foot oil, and it'll come out. They'll be as dark as these alligators right here when I'm done, you know. But after a couple of weeks, it comes back to the natural leather color when it starts to dry out a little bit.
Yeah, so neat's foot is made from like shin bones and feet of stock animals.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit greasy. That's really the only thing that I've had to worry about with neat's
Yeah.
foot. And mink oil is very similar. It's a
I was gonna
rendered mink.
ask.
Yeah. It's really, really similar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so the discoloration really is the only concern with anything
Yeah.
other than, and what you're talking about, they're already oil tanned, so they
Mhm.
need to drink that in. I'd be 100% for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that exact same pair is basically a lot of my Red Wings.
Right.
Most of
Yeah.
all of them are oiled. And I actually I use Bic 4 and I absolutely love it on the oil.
Really?
It's not going to get nearly as dark as what you're talking about to begin with.
Yeah.
It does get just slightly darker, but within a couple hours, it's right back to where it was.
Yeah.
And it definitely does a good job. And I've also on that I've got a copper rough and tough is that basically that exact leather you have on a couple pairs of Iron Rangers. And I've been using that Canadian B seal on those.
Yeah.
And what I really like about that is, like I said, it just barely darkens it and then it comes back, but you go wear them 3 or 4 times and then you basically just hit them with a horsehair brush again. And it just comes right back.
Yeah.
Gets rid of any of those scrapes or scratches. What you just did with your fingernail, you can basically rub your thumb, just
Yeah.
give it a little heat and it goes away.
Oh, okay.
It's one of my favorite leathers right there is what you're talking about.
Yeah, I really like it too. And I like using that oil personally just because I like the look of that pair of boots darker, honestly. That's all personal preference. If you want to.
Oh, yeah.
And I started doing it originally because I actually made a video about it a long time ago, but I stepped in an oil slick and almost busted my ass, and I got dark ass motor oil all over them. And and they were like only like 3 weeks old at the time, So
Yeah, I remember you doing that. You cleaned them with something, didn't you?
Yeah, I used dish soap, which is probably the worst thing in the world
Which
to do. But I
dries
did it
them out like no other.
Yeah, I did it, try to get that oil off. But after that, I hit it with the neat's foot oil, and now you can't even see the oil stain on them anymore. So
Yeah, my brother's got a lot of boots like that are actually Red Wing pull-ons, and he uses the mink oil.
yeah,
Again, it darkens them to all get out, but for what he's doing, he needs the water protection.
yeah. The only mink oil, like I like the mink oil that's oily. I don't really like the stuff that's petroleum jelly like,
Right.
that they call mink oil also. Red Wing sells it. And I don't
They-
like that because you end up feeling like you rub Vaseline all over them. It's sticky and everything.
Yeah,
So,
they've bastardized the name both of neat's foot and mink's oil to, something that was originally like rendered mink fat that was, really kind of, like you said, an organic, something that's a byproduct of mink skins to be this like petroleum based kind of gasoline preservative. Yeah, it's not a good, some products you got to kind of watch, but if you're paying a premium for it, it should really be rendered fat of some type of animal.
And I know with the neat's foot, you have to be careful and make sure it's 100% neat's foot oil because they'll cut it with all kinds of stuff. So if you're interested, and some people don't like it, some people are against using it. I started using it because growing up, I played baseball my whole life, and that's what I always used on my baseball gloves, and it worked great. So,
and hey, honestly, in reality, conditioners are a mix of oils. Right.
Yeah.
They are a mix of oils and, different substances that are put together. So neat's foot or mink is just kind of going back to basics, and it's going to darken the leather. But if it's a work application or something like Lucas was talking about, 100% appropriate.
Yeah. Okay. So we kind of touched on reptile. Why don't you talk about snakeskin specifically? Because I know, the scales can curl up and flake off if you're not careful and that kind of thing.
Yeah, part of snakeskin is a little bit odd because if you don't tan it correctly, you see a lot of these 1970s, 1980s, even newer boots, you get yellowing within the first year that you own them. And by the time you've owned them 5 years, the entire snakeskin is bright yellow or
Mhm.
dark, kind of motley yellow, which is really gross. You don't want to do that. I mean, the care is kind of similar. Again, it's a reptile. You are going to want to watch a little bit more when you're cleaning. You have to brush with the grain of the scales. Otherwise, you're going to tear them off of the fabric. Probably one of the more manually intensive. My pair of Diamondback, it takes me twice as long to clean as any other pair because, you've got these triad cut vamps where, you've got the one skin in the front of the vamp, two different skins in the other side of the vamp, and they're all facing different directions. So you have to brush, in a different direction every time you're cleaning and conditioning. But this is definitely one that I would clean before I condition because each one of those scales is going to hold dirt. It's going to hold dust. I wear my snakeskin probably more infrequently, even though it's probably one of the more attractive leathers than I do all the other ones. They need time to breathe. They need time to rest and kind of condition and be cleaned. So I would say it's one of the more delicate leathers. You kick something like a rock, you ain't fixing it. There's no buffing. There's no cream. Usually it's a natural color, right? So there's nothing you're going to get that's going to match that.
Yeah.
Right. It's going to be something you got to take care of. You got to be careful with.
What if you do notice that the scales are starting to curl out of dryness and everything? What's your recommendation on how to mitigate the damage?
Ideally, you get to it before that, right? So you're going to want to use if you're already at that point, right, just keep it conditioned. Don't wear it so much. There's really not a way to get back to the original color and style. So, when that's also a buying consideration. If you're buying a used boot as opposed to a new one, if the scales are already curling, you can use a finisher like an acrylic Resolene or something to kind of paste them back down to the boot, but it's going to be an unnatural uncurling, and that's fine. I've used it a couple of times, and that's been successful. And you can bring the color back out and the figure back out by adding some of those finishers and waterproofers onto their high shine, high test materials like acrylic Resolene.
Yeah.
But to get a natural curl, uncurl out of it's impossible.
Yeah. I've heard of people in some of the Facebook groups where I forget what product they were putting on it, and then they were wrapping it in saran wrap to kind of make them flatten back out. They claim they had success with it, but like I said, I can't remember what products they were putting on it before that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see that. I haven't ever seen anything. As I've certainly glued one or two down in the past if they were going crazy and they were really like getting up there and going nuts and flaking out around the other guys. I use a leather cement. The Fiebing's leather cement is really great to kind of make everything sit back down. But in terms of removing, once it gets to a certain texture, right, you're going to be able to condition it, but you can't put it back to normal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So what about ostrich? This comes up quite a bit. I use the Scout exotic and reptile on the ostrich as well. What about you guys?
I use Big Four.
Yeah.
Yeah. Other than a couple pairs of, Cayman or my ringtail lizard, I pretty much use Big Four just about on everything.
Yeah.
I like applying it with my hands, and then at the very end, I'll hit it with my brush to take any of the clumps that are maybe stuck around or close to the welt. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of ostrich. That's
I am too.
just a great leather all around, feel and durability. But I don't use it. I could definitely use the exotic if I wanted to, but I have more of the Big Four, so I just use that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big Four is, I use that on my ostrich, certainly no issues. But the Bic exotic, if you've got some really big kind of gnarly, you call them the dots right on there that are where the feathers removed.
Quills.
It can be a little bit useful. Quills, correct. Yeah, the full quill. it can be useful to use the exotic to kind of make sure it doesn't get layered on too thick and then not removed.
Yeah, that's why I do it. The pair that I have is got some really, really big quills on it. And I did use the leather lotion on there one time, and it was just hard to get it all, like around each one. It was really hard to get the thick stuff off. But the quills are ridiculous on that pair of boots. So if you have normal size ones, I don't see a problem using Big Four or Scout leather lotion or whatever. And I'll say this for anybody out there that wants to get into exotics and has never owned any and you're wondering what to get, my recommendation would be ostrich, either smooth ostrich or full quill. I don't know. I'm kind of like Lucas.
Great place to start for sure.
Yeah. I think for the money, you get a really nice boot, and it's durable as hell, and it's so soft and comfortable. It's just a really great option to start with, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was a comment from a guy on Reddit yesterday, and I had this back and forth where he said, you absolutely don't need Bic Exotic on ostrich. Let me just say right now, Bic 4 is fine. Bic Exotic is fine. You can use either on ostrich. But to say that Bic Exotic doesn't belong on ostrich, it makes no sense. It's specifically formulated for exotic boots that have figure on them. So I'll just put that out there.
No, I agree. I mean, there's a lot of products that you can use on a lot of different things, but like you said, to say that you can't use it on ostrich is just stupid.
You can use Bic Exotic on your smooth letters if you want. You got the money, and you got the amount of it. I mean, it's not going to hurt anything.
I think he's sleeping with a bottle of it.
Yeah. I mean, for the most part, the exotics, the way I understand it, the exotic conditioners are very similar to the Big Exotic is similar to Big Four. They just thin it down.
Mm-hmm.
So you can get
thinner. It's in a spray application versus a thicker lotion. I mean,
So
that was dumb.
That's not a very smart thing to say.
He got banned.
You put in your cereal, Lucas?
What's that?
You put it in your cereal too?
I would,
Yeah.
Try anything once, I guess.
I'm sorry I joined a few minutes late tonight. Did y'all talk any about older tanning processes of alligator hides versus the newer stuff that has a matte finish?
No.
The older tanning process, where you have the gloss finish in alligator, those hides as a rule are much more susceptible to the cracks you see in alligator hide versus the matte tanning process that's more current. Seems to be a lot less harsh to the hide itself, and seems to pretty much make the issues of cracked hides go away. Obviously, you still got to maintain it, but I mean, I've seen some pretty nice looking alligator hide boots that cracked pretty quickly, and they weren't abused or anything since the hide dried out.
Steve, I get a lot of those in the antique and vintage boot world. I mean, you get so many, and it was not necessarily respective of the brands. You had like T.O. Stanley, right, that are getting scale rot because of the way that they were tanned. It has nothing to do with the production process. It's the older tanning processes that kind of make things a little bit less resilient.
Yeah. I like the
definitely
the
the tanning process that I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And the newer processes for the matte hides it's just the hides themselves seem to be a lot softer and supple.
Yeah, the pair that I have definitely is. And it's more of the matte finish, which I like. And if I spray them down with the exotic cleaner and buff it, it gets a pretty decent shine on it for a while. It'll go away, but you might not get the high gloss spit shine look, but you can get them glossy enough to go out to dinner and look good.
I've never been looking for a reflection in my boots, especially alligator when I look down.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gloss is obtained like one of basically two ways. You can put some type of wax, which can be shined and buffed, or you can have a finishing agent, which is on almost every newer boot that you're going to purchase anyway. I bet if you looked at your Caimans, I mean, they're pretty shiny, right? The Caimans that you have over there, Nick. I mean, they're pretty shiny. They've probably got some type of finishing agent,
Yeah, I would say
waterproofing on them, like some type of acrylic, which is a lot more breathable and doesn't cake up, assuming you just put like one light coat as opposed to a wax on them. So that's going to be something that's again, not a big fan of wax. I don't think polish belongs on boots. I think it was a good application at the time. Now that we have these oil dyed creams that are available, that's something you should absolutely use as opposed to a wax with some oil in it. It's going to build up over top of what a lot of these new boots have, which is that acrylic shine on the dress boot, which is going to give it the sheen that everybody likes to see.
Yeah. So Max Gebhardt is in chat, and he has two-stage question. He says, on Natural Python, what is the best product for slowing or limiting the yellowing?
I don't know. I don't know that I've ever been able to slow or limit yellowing. If the hide's tanned in properly, then generally you're going to get yellowing issues with the color fastness and the scales themselves. I had a friend of mine who bought a pair of Eastern Diamondback rattlesnake from a random Mexican company, which is pretty reputable, but they yellowed within 6 months. My Cowtown that I've had, for people's misgivings about Cowtown, cheap boots, great exotics. I've never had any problems. I've had mine for 4 years now. Not one scale on those is yellowed. They were tanned properly. You just got to buy from a reputable company. And I've never been able to see or prevent yellowing from an improperly tanned snake hide.
Yeah. And then he wants to know, go ahead, Steve.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Second question, have you ever tried with conditioner and dried in boot trees, then vacuum sealed bags to slow or limit the oxidation?
No.
I can't say that I've ever heard of that.
To me, they wouldn't be able to breathe. I don't know that I don't know. I would cut them off from oxygen.
Yeah, I'm not a scientist, but to me, that doesn't sound like a good idea.
I do store a lot of my nice boots inside some kind of soft boot bags that goes over the boots.
Yeah.
That keeps the dust and also light off of them. I mean, let's be honest here, light absolutely deteriorates color.
Yep.
Yeah.
UV rays, absolutely. And that's what I'm talking about with a lot of the newer boots with the acrylic protection. It not only provides waterproofing, but it also provides UV protection. So if you have a thin layer of acrylic over top of that exotic skin, it's almost like wearing sunblock, right? It's going to keep it from getting washed out.
Yeah.
Nate,
go ahead.
I got a question for you, Nate. Since you deal with so many used boots, talk some about the breakdown of the inner liner on boots at the stress points. From my experience, that's all caused by wearing the boots too many days in a row. The leather gets wet. Your foot creates an acid that tears it down. I would imagine you see that a bunch where the outside hide looks pretty good, but the inside liner is trashed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a pair of 1960s Tony Lama Algonquin with a caribou plug in them, and they are beautiful, gorgeous boots. They've got a beautiful caribou hide on the front of the vamp. When you look on the interior, you would think that these things belong in a landfill. I mean, they're black, the leather's cracked. They're great boots. They've got great history to them. But honestly, when I condition, I do the same thing that Lucas was talking about. I go just with my hands, And I also apply a layer of that conditioner to the inside of the top, the upper of the boot as well, because I've seen so many pairs from 1960s and 1970s that have been well taken care of, but inside the upper, which is leather, right? There has never been any kind of application or any kind of thought towards the sweat buildup, the water damage, the tearing of the inside. And sure, it takes a while on that tougher inside lining material, but something you're going to want to pay attention to. If you want to pass these boots down to your kids or your grandkids, which you can do with cowboy boots, which is unique to almost any other shoe, right? This is an heirloom, something that will hold value, for your family. It's something you're going to want to pay attention to now.
Yeah.
Boot trees, especially the cedar ones, after you wear them, absorbs the moisture out of that leather liner. I think that makes a huge difference in longevity of the boot itself, and obviously it helps it keep its shape too.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a good question. A lot of people bring it up. What about, people are worried about the cedar trees stretching out the boot.
If they're the right size and they're not too tight, I don't think that's an issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I see where you're coming from, because I've had a pair of older boots that have not been conditioned that I've put a pair of too large trees into that have actually caused tears. So certainly it can stretch the boot, but usually if you're using something that's cedar, like Steve mentioned, it'll be sized to like a 9 to an 11 or a 12 to 14.
Right.
And so you can appropriately place something that's not going to cause any kind of significant damage. Plastic ones are easy. Again, Steve's 100% correct. Like the cedar is going to create a more pleasant smell. It's going to, wick the moisture out at the end of the day. But if you're just worried about holding shape, a plastic one is a good option. If you're worried about the economy of how much it costs. Cedar trees, dude, oh my God, they're not cheap.
No.
These days.
No.
I mean, I'm
20
buying
to
new
40
ones.
bucks.
Yeah, I looked at buying new ones, and it's an investment.
Yeah.
Certainly, if you've got a pair of custom JB Hills, throw some of them in the bad boys. But it can be cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
good.
on my experience, and it was just probably how I was raised and taught, and pretty much, other than a few that I've obviously gotten used. But if I'm buying a new pair of boots and it's $300 to $400 to $500,
Yeah.
guess what? Automatically comes with it is a $35 pair
Yeah.
of cedar boot trees.
Yeah.
Because why spend that much money if I'm not going to be able to? And
Right.
I know some people don't use them at all. Jeremiah Craig, he likes to have the wrinkles all the time, and those wrinkles are still there when you go to put the boot back on.
Yeah.
They're not as pronounced. But every pair of boots I have right now have cedar trees sitting in them.
Yeah. Well, I think
agree
what Nate brought up is a good point about the plastic ones. If you have, say, 20 pairs of boots right now and you don't have any boot trees, you might look into the plastic ones, because you can get those on Amazon, like 10 pairs for 25 bucks. Get those and get you one pair of cedar trees maybe. And then just, every paycheck, maybe you buy another pair of cedar trees, and just start replacing the plastic ones.
Here's sort of a way to get around it. If you really had to buy a couple pairs, and let's say you got 20 pairs. Well, guess what? You don't wear 20 pairs every day, right?
Right.
So put a pair in the pair you just wore and leave them for a couple days. And then your other pair, the next day you put in that pair. And then a couple days from now, you grab the other pair and you put them in the one you just wore. Like if you can't get by with having one and every of them to sit there until you wear them again, at least have them in there for the couple days after you wear them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is what I would suggest.
Yeah.
Rotating them out.
Yeah. And like you said, if you're buying a $500 or $600 pair of boots, what's the difference in $40 more?
Right.
Your wife's already going to be pissed
just
at
a
you if she
no-brainer.
finds out.
No, baby. I
Don't
had
leave 'em
these. They were in the back of the closet. You just haven't seen them before.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What were you
Just
saying?
make sure
Steve?
she doesn't use those boot trees to bounce off your head.
The cedar ones hurt more.
They absolutely do.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I mean,
I've
I know
several-
mine. The majority I have are Lucchese. So what's nice is, when I order some from them, they have the boot trees right there on their website too, and it's the exact same last that they use in their boots. So it's a good fit. It just, yeah, to me, it was just, what, if you're buying that, it's a no-brainer to throw on another $30. I mean, you're basically, that's what tax is going to cost you anyway. So, hell, just get it.
Yeah.
I concur.
Yeah, I have cedars in my JB Hills and in my custom made. I had a pair made from an older skin that you can't get anymore. And really that's because I need so many in order to like take the pictures on eBay. I have to be able to keep them in some of the used pairs I have downstairs. I can't spare that many for my personal pairs, but they're definitely for the more high end pair.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess the only thing I would say about that is I would caution using them right after you wear the boots.
I'll let mine
If you
breathe
can stand it.
for a few hours.
Yeah, I'm talking the plastic ones. Like I wouldn't put a plastic set in a pair of boots that I just worn because they're not going to absorb any moisture. They're just going to hold it right there on the skin. But that's just my opinion. A couple days
I
after
have
you throw it in
seen
there.
more pairs of sweat stained ostrich than I have anything else. I'm not entirely sure why, but it's a popular leather, certainly something that I get in quite a bit. But it really does seem like what you're talking about, Lucas, is that I don't know if they're throwing something inside or if they're doing a lot of heavy work in them. But because the interior of the leather doesn't have any of that water fastness, is generally that acrylic that's put over top a lot of these newer boots, they get stained from the inside out. And that's a really big problem because, again, they're water resistant. They're not waterproof. You get those water stains in there and you're going to have to re-dye the entire boot.
Yeah, I
I
can
think
see
you're
that
gonna-
pretty easily.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get water stains a lot faster if you're wearing the same boot every day. Also,
Yeah.
the moisture never has a chance to wick itself out of that leather,
Right?
and that alone is what causes that inner leather to crack a lot near the edge of the toe box.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And by your little toe on the outside where it meets the sole, you'll see that leather worn through and cracked right there too. And that's all because the boots aren't getting rested any at all.
And you don't want to dry with heat, like fire with heat, right? You want to let them dry
definitely.
naturally. You want air circulation. Exactly. So you're not drying the leather out. But yeah, 100%, you've got to give them a chance to breathe and dry out. If you get that sweat buildup over a couple of days, sayonara to your light colored exotics.
Yeah.
By the way, Nate, those boots you hooked me up with shipped today.
13E Nakona vintage anteater, one piece vamp. Just an absolute trip. Like he told me about him. I said, don't tell anybody else I'm talking to Steve, because I just heard a horror story from him the other day where he had tried to get a pair and they were print, and I'm going to hook them up.
Very much appreciate it.
Yeah. That was funny because Nathan Lundy told me, he's like, hey, we need to get a hold of Steve because Castile's got a pair of anteaters that might fit him. And it was like 3 minutes later, Steve IMs me like, hey, how do I get a hold of Castile? He's got some anteaters. I need them right now.
Well, I had messaged Nathan and he was tied up and I didn't want to give it more than 3 minutes.
I hear you, man. Sometimes it's all about timing.
It is, especially in that kind of stuff.
Yep.
I mean, I guarantee you, Nate scored, and all of us have probably scored some incredible stuff off of eBay with Buy It Now. As somebody that doesn't really know the value of what they're selling, it's just a family members that's deceased or whatever,
Yeah.
that they just list it for a few $100 buy it now and it's a unicorn.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not a
I
boot.
will neither confirm or deny that I have done that.
Yeah.
This wasn't a boot purchase, but me and a buddy, we used to go on Saturdays and Sundays, we'd go to garage sales and estate sales and buy stuff and then flip it on eBay, right? And we went to this estate sale and I walk in the room and there's like 10 of those footballs that are white on the backside for autographs. And they were all by the same person. And I saw like an F and a T. So I was like, I wonder if that's Fran Tarkenton. And I looked it up and sure enough, it was Fran Tarkenton's signature on 10 of them, right? And they wanted $20 a piece, which was already a good deal. But I was like, hey man, it's the last day of the estate sale. If I buy all of them, would you take 50? And they go, sold, $50 for all of them. And then I can't, I sold a couple of them for $100 and a couple of them for 50 or 60, but that was all about the timing, just having to be there. And I might have been the only one that figured out who the signature was too, because when you go to some of those estate sales, they're run by a company and not the family, and they don't really know all that much.
Cool story.
Cool story, bro. All right, guys. Well, we're going to cut it off there after my awkward story. But I think we need to revisit this in the future because there's a ton of skins we didn't get to, like, elephant's a popular one. There's numerous ones out there. So we'll revisit this topic. But I want to thank all the viewers out there for tuning in and watching. It means the world to us. Nate, Steve, Lucas, thank you guys for stopping in.
Thank you.
And we'll catch y'all on the next one. Take it easy.
All right. Good night.
Good night.